Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the ACFL YouTube channel. And today we are piggybacking off of our kind of tank preview, our draft order that we came up with. And we are doing a 2022 way too early mock draft. So early, it's before even all of the trades are sent in and finalized. So I am Steelbadker, still stepping in for Hude as host. And today I have with me Brett Kern.
Hey, thanks for having me, and thanks for giving me a few days notice before we did this because I actually really enjoyed going back to college football for the first time in a little while since the draft and taking a look at some people I had overlooked. Sort of had a idea of the very top players who I already thought were going in this draft, like Sam Howell and a bunch of other people. But it's great to jump in because by the time I got to the late first in this mock, I was like, damn. I don't even remember some of these people. I need to go back and take a look. So
Yeah, I changed mine a lot. I think I changed it 3 times after I kind of made the
I
first
found the
one.
big X factor on that was the COVID year,
Oh,
because
yeah.
there are so many Pac-12 players and really players across the whole country who didn't put in a full season, and like I have Abraham Lucas coming up in this mock, who last year if he hadn't redeclared for COVID, a lot of people thought he was a top 10 player, and so a ton of movement because of COVID, I think. And it's crazy that would still be happening in 2022 because in reality, they're going to be playing this next year. So we'll be judging a guy like Lucas by his 2022 tape, right? But
Yeah, I
we're
still
still
think
in
that's going to
reality, so we have to go
yeah.
by mostly like 2019. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a little bit of that COVID still affecting these players because there's
Yeah.
always the fear with like one-hit wonder types. It's like
Yep.
people who didn't play their sophomore years, but then completely bought as juniors or,
Yep.
redshirt or whatever, and they're trying to declare for the draft. Those players are going to have that. Well, they didn't play last year, even though they maybe would have if they didn't opt out or if it wasn't the Pac-12. So that's going to be interesting how it's still going to affect. I think next year is the only one that's still going to be really affected because, like, we'll be talking about freshmen at
Yep.
that point for their freshman year, and freshman year doesn't usually impact too much, at least in a negative way. Their
I'm not gonna lie,
stock.
I have some people on here who I'm mostly judging them based off their freshman year because they had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them had breakout freshman years in 2019, usually redshirt freshmen, and then last year they probably had very little production and tape to go off of. 2022, we're expecting, as juniors or redshirt juniors, they're hopefully gonna continue to grow, and then they might enter the NFL draft as underclassmen. So from the point we're sitting at right here, we're at a very unique time where we almost have to go off of like freshman year tape and production, which
Yep,
not ideal, and it's going to
not
lead
ideal.
to, if we look back on this in a year, I think we'll for sure we'll be like Spencer Rattler, like what were you thinking? But you
Exactly.
never
It's
know.
gonna be wild. But so we will
Yeah.
move into the first overall pick, which goes to the Houston Texans.
Yep.
They won the
So
tank pool there. So we'll start
they're
with
up
your
first in the
pick.
draft order. Yeah. So with that pick, the Houston Texans select Evan Neal, offensive tackle, Alabama. This was a pick that I didn't expect to make. I think the conventional wisdom is that they would take Sam Howell. He's been the top recruit and top sort of viewed quarterback for years, sort of like that Josh Rosen, Christian Hackenberg, like golden boy kind of vibe all throughout their college careers. And nonetheless, I really feel like Houston in our fantasy league is likely to not be looking at a quarterback at this time because they have Deshaun Watson on the roster, and there's a pretty solid chance he'll just be starting for them, in 2 years' time. Even if he's not, even if they've traded him, I feel it's very likely they would either get a quarterback or a high draft pick back. So, to think that they're going to take a QB with this number one overall pick, not to mention just passing up Davis Mills, who they took this year with their top pick, which was I believe in the third round. Um, I don't see it as all that likely. And so then I got to thinking, who could possibly be the number one pick? And it was a two-person race to me between Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau. And Neal, I think, is the more complete player, the more the number one pick that makes sense. He reminds me of Greg Robinson's rise up to number two, where you just had this physically massive and athletic tackle. And the difference is here, I feel Evan Neal is on a whole different level technique wise, with another year to develop and even get better. He could be, he could be graded higher than Penny Sewell, I think, by the time this next draft comes around. And most people thought Sewell could have gone number one this year if not for quarterbacks crowding out the number one pick.
Yeah, I think this year it's easier to project quarterbacks going to these teams because like that's the biggest need and stuff. But there is a very real possibility in this class that quarterbacks are not worth a top 5 pick. Like none of these guys right now are truly worth that top 5 pick. And there's some boom potential, but there's a lot of like these guys just aren't good. Like that could definitely happen. So, and I think Evan Neal, he's moving to left tackle, kind of playing that for the first time. That's gonna be make or break for me if he's like top 5 or like around the top 10 level. If he's like the same player he's been, which you can see that happening. Like transition from guard to tackle happens, especially when they're younger.
At Alabama, that's how it goes. He had a first round pick left tackle starting ahead of him, and at all sorts of positions, running back and receiver, especially on that team. You have Heisman candidate players on the bench, and I know Neal wasn't on the bench, but sliding over to left tackle, that just kind of seems like a Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram situation to me, where he and Leatherwood are probably going to be in the NFL for a long time.
Which I think he started as a true freshman, so that's a huge endorsement of him to start there as a true freshman, as many as they've turned out in the last couple years. So, and then we will move in. So we're going to do my pick and Acorn's pick together since they're the same. Sam Howell, quarterback out of UNC. For me, the reason why I put him over Rattler is I think I see what translates better from him. He has the physical tools to get there, but I see within the structure of that offense, I see it working at the next level just a little bit better, but he needs to clean up a lot of things in his processing in the flow of the offense to get to that point. I just think the step he has to take to get to where I can see him being this pick is just slightly easier than what I see from Rattler.
I like it. I considered him highly for this pick. He has a lot of great tools. I don't think the arm talent is elite or even top 5 level for a QB prospect I'm looking for, and that's the only reason if it had been for that, if he had Zach Wilson's arm, for me I'd forecast him number 1. But I'm not completely sold.
He would have to be much more mentally sound to overcome not having elite arm talent, and it's like I think he could do it because he's shown games where he's just tearing apart defenses and even good defenses. So it's like you can see it, but we need to see it more consistently. And I think he can. I project him to be rather likely to do it. But again, it's easier to project quarterbacks this high.
We forgot to mention something off the top that's quite important, which is we were thinking about this mock draft is an idea of what we would do in each of these spots as if we were drafting 12, 32 teams. And if we were making a projection this far out, I probably would go with Sam Howell. But that's kind of a crazy exercise when you're
that's
out.
for sure.
So it's so
hard
easy
to
decision.
do what you think they'll do when you don't even know what they're going to do free agency.
And we don't even really know them because it's just a person in our league who owns the GM. It's not even the real team. So
we have no history.
How would you know what they're thinking?
So then the poll result for this was pretty wild. We actually did do 2 polls. We did one where it had all of the usual kind of top 5 mock people. But then we got asked to put Desmond Ridder in there, and he ended up winning the second poll. So
I think that poll win is a big boon for me and Acorn for our mock drafts. I won't spoil anything, but
I like him. I think he's just a little on the older side, and he's kind of I think there was just something missing when I was watching him, but I haven't gotten too terribly deep in any of these guys, so I could have just not watched the game that would have given me the let's go for that guy. So,
and honestly, he is the biggest projection of any player in this draft. Like I don't think there is a game on his tape yet that says he's anywhere near the number 1 pick. And I think it's crazy that people voted for him number 1 because there's no reason to think that right now. But when you have someone as electric as him as a runner, it would make sense to think that he's going to do well next year and raise his stock a lot.
All right, so then moving into the number 2 pick, the Philadelphia Eagles. Who did you have them taking?
So all 3 of us are on board with Spencer Rattler, quarterback Oklahoma, and but there is one key discrepancy, which is I have him ahead of Howell. Obviously, you all have him behind Howell. So even though we're all in agreement, he's not the number 1 QB for either of you. And that gets back to my philosophy, which I've talked about at length, and I'm not going to repeat it too much. If I have my choice between every single QB in the draft, and in the Eagles' case, apparently they need a quarterback, I'm gonna go with the QB with the best proven arm talent, and I think you can work on just about everything else other than like mobility and pure athleticism, and frankly, Rattler is a solid athlete too, for NFL quarterbacks as it goes. So it was a pretty easy pick to me. The only reason I hesitated is that he feels a little bit like Jalen Hurts as a prospect. I don't know if you think that's true.
Yeah. So that's like the thing with me with why I didn't have him as QB1, and it's like close. Like if I had to take him right now, I'd probably take him over Howell, but I'm projecting I think he's not going to improve his draft stock this year. Like I
Mm.
think a lot of people are like expecting him to take a step forward, and I don't know if I see an easy way for him to turn it in 1 year to take a step forward, if that makes sense. So I could see him being somebody who underwhelms this year if it were to happen. But that's just like, it's so hard to tell. And with COVID year, it's always hard to see, was he benefited by defenses not being able to prepare enough preseason? Or was he hampered by not being able to prepare enough himself preseason? So there's just so many weird things going on with this stuff. So it's close margins between the two for me.
I could have gone either way. I could even see Ritter or Thibodeau or several other players going here.
Yep.
The only thing is, when you're a team like the Lions, you make this trade for Jared Goff. You have years ahead of time to think about your franchise quarterback, and the fact that they haven't really made a move for anyone except Goff tells me, they're going to be very well prepared. And the more time you think about this question, I think most people would then push toward Sam Howell because he feels safer and you've had more tape on him and you've had his whole college career to evaluate him. I just think he's the guy you land on if you're Detroit, and this is the pick that I actually because we don't know where Detroit's gonna be picking. They could very easily be picking number one, and I would almost slot them Sam Howell no matter where they pick unless they're outside of the top five somehow.
Yeah, I like Sam Howell for them. I think that's somebody they are eyeing as well. Like I just had him going above where they
Yeah.
ended up.
I'm so
So
sorry. Did I just change the subject from Philadelphia to
oh yeah, it's
Detroit
fine.
mid
We'll,
sentence?
we'll move on. So yeah, we've
I thought
transitioned
we
to
were
pick
on.
number
I
three.
thought we were on Detroit already. I don't know
No, yeah, it's
why.
cool. But no, so Sam Howell did get picked number 2 by the Eagles for the poll, which kind of is a
Right.
result of
That's why.
moving
Okay.
people
That's
down.
that's how I
So
got confused. Okay. There you
yep.
go.
But so we're on to number 3 pick, Sam Howell. I think that would be a solid goal for them
Yeah.
because the way that I think they just need consistency at quarterback. They kind of had the volatile, Stafford. You kind of know you're going to get sometime. I think they can build a pretty solid team around Howell. But this was very all over the place. The poll result had him taking Rattler, which you can see him being there at that point. You could see if
Hmm.
Howell's gone, Rattler would be a pretty solid choice. As you said, it was pretty close. And
Nobody would
then
argue with that. Yeah.
Acorn had them trying to just create a stacked two-corner set up there with Derek Stingley, who I really like. I like Stingley a lot. But I just don't know if the Lions should invest that much in corner. I think they need to take one
So
here.
you mean with Jeff Okuda?
Yeah, with
That's the
Akuda.
other one. Okay.
They're trying. I mean, 2 top 10 picks. Akuda was like 6, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So 2
Might
really
even be
high
higher.
picks.
Yeah.
But so it's just like I understand, and it's never a bad idea to invest in corner. But I just think this draft is deep enough to where you can get a high end number 2 corner because Akuda is just going to need to be that number 1 corner if he's going to be worth that pick. And
I
he
really
is.
like Stingley. I think you really do too, judging by who you gave
Yep.
him to.
Yep.
And it does remind me. He does remind me more than anybody of Denzel Ward, who also went extremely high, way higher than people thought, to a
At
team
3,
that a lot of people
like
thought would
4.
take a QB. Yeah,
Yes.
I get it from Acorn. The one thing I question there is, as you mentioned, they already have a Cuda. Why not take Kayvon Thibodeau there if you're Detroit? It seems like that would be the pick if they have some other QB solution.
Yeah.
Which
See, I
neither of us
like.
believe in Jared Goff at all,
Yeah.
clearly.
Neither of us. Yeah. So I like their D line enough. Like I think that like Thibodeau is clearly like there's very few teams that you wouldn't take Thibodeau if he's there. Like
Yeah.
even me, like if he's sitting there for me and I still have Bud Dupree, TJ Watt, and Highsmith, like I'm still gonna probably take him. He's so good that it's like it's
Really? Okay.
hard to like not take him at that point if he's there. Because it's just like he's worth the pick at that point. But that would be obviously trying to trade one of the guys that I have to make room for him because that would be just insane. But so then I had them swinging for the fences. In my eyes, Jared Goff is a good quarterback. He's the baseline. He's the low end of good. So if I'm going to pick a quarterback, I'll take one that can give me my elite upside, and that'd be Malik Willis for me. This is a pretty big projection based off of how he played last year. He has all the tools. He's nearly a Lamar Jackson level runner. If you watch him play, you can see that parallels. He's not quite that because nobody's Lamar Jackson. He's not quite that high, but he's the B to Lamar Jackson's A, which is still a problem to deal with. He has the arm strength, the arm talent. The problem with him is that his lower half does not match his upper half. He doesn't have that footwork. Footwork is fixable. Of the things, he seems to have a good mental, grasp of the game, understands the concept they're trying to do at Liberty, but it's just his footwork is so bad at times that it's impossible to be accurate. So it's I don't know if that's a 1-year fix. I think he may fall past even 10 because his footwork might not be there. But I think he's a pretty hard worker from everything I've seen. That Quincy Avery's working with him. The footwork could get to that point and him to be QB1 at this point, next year. So
I think it's a really good fit based on what you just said. That if they need time to work on his mechanics or anything else about his game, Detroit's a sensible place, assuming they're still willing to pay Jared Goff that long. The one, I don't love him going this high because the biggest question about him is not his athleticism or his arm talent or anything. Really, it's the pro transition, from Liberty to the NFL. I can't tell you an NFL player who came from Liberty. I can't tell you anyone in real life who I know who went there. I can't imagine a star franchise quarterback that you took in the top 3 weathering that well. And from what I've heard, he's kind of a big ego guy, which is what you'd expect from a star college quarterback, right? It seems like all the conditions are there for that kind of intangibles bust situation, and Detroit is also not the place that I think of that can weather that storm for him. They don't have a great track record, so
I understand that.
I'd be worried, but he's an awesome talent, and if you're just thinking about everything on the field, I can see him in the top 10. But I have him sliding a little bit because I think NFL teams are not going to love him.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. So then moving on to the Las Vegas Raiders, the only one that everybody agrees on.
Very interesting.
It's Kayvon Thibodeau. So
it's funny that we all agree on this because I don't really agree on it.
Because it's just he's pretty much consensus. Every board I see, he's number 1. So he's still here at 4. We're starting to look at the quarterback options. We're not 100% sure of are they better than Derek Carr, but I could see quarterback. They seem to want to move on from him, so I could definitely see quarterback. But it's if what I would do, I think Carr can be a good enough quarterback to build around, and they just don't have talent anywhere. They don't have enough talent anywhere you look around because they just haven't used their picks well. So it's just at some point you just have to try to take the home run pick, and it's falling from 1 to 4 on big boards. That's pretty good.
Pass rusher is the one spot where they are set, where they are above average, really. And that's why I was worried. That's why I didn't love making this pick. But even I had to admit, you can't pick anybody else above him. There's nobody else here at this point where we are a year out from the draft who is even close to the excess, athletic ability that he has above replacement at his position. When you talk about dropping down to Drake Jackson or DeMarvin Leal or the other guys, they're good pass rushers, they're good ends generally. But it's he's a Clowney level athlete, borderline, and they're sort of average top 10 pass rushers. Sort of really on par with Kwity Paye and the other guys from this last draft to me. There's a little bit of more upside with Leal, I think. But anyway, Thibodeau is a no-brainer just slotted into the 4th pick.
Yeah.
The position is so weird. They have Max Crosby. They have Clelin Ferrell, who they just took with the 4th pick. They have Solomon Thomas. They have in real life they have Yannick Ngakoue. They don't have him in our league. But in our league they have another pass rusher, who's started caliber. So they're going to have to make moves to facilitate this pick in the next 2 years. Whereas, as you said, they have holes everywhere else on defense and kind of at receiver and offensive line. They could go almost anywhere. But to me, you just take the best talent here. Clearly Thibodeau.
Yeah, I do like. So I will mention the trade that you made because I think it works well and it fits
Yeah,
kind of what both teams want to do. So you had the Falcons, who have the seventh pick,
yeah.
trading up to the fourth pick to take Thibodeau, and I think that, I mean, with the pick, we'll talk about that later. But I think that pick makes a lot of sense. It's just with like a lot of us, just like we have to take Thibodeau here, so it's like you might as well get that extra value for him, and I think Atlanta makes a lot of sense to make that small jump. So that
Atlanta has
trade,
been craving an elite pass rusher since that one fluky Vic Beasley season. And
yeah,
Arthur Smith has been craving a pass rusher his entire time in Tennessee, and now he's there, and they don't have anybody in our league. Like, I actually don't. None of us have them forecasted to take a pass rusher, and I kind of regret it because there were good pass rushers there in all of our boards at that point for Atlanta,
yep.
which is why I felt they'd trade up and get to it.
So then, moving on to my Pittsburgh Steelers, you and
Yeah.
I agree. Derek Stingley Jr. It's kind of a best player available.
Mhm.
I can see the argument Evan Neal is the best player available, but I invested a lot in tackle, so I wasn't going to go that route unless things were a disaster. And at that point, I'm probably going free agency if things were that big of a disaster.
Yeah.
At the other tackle spot, Moton should be good regardless. So
Because
Derek,
you wouldn't count on the draft because you wouldn't know if Neil would even be there.
well, exactly. I wouldn't know if he'd
Yeah.
even be there at that point, and it's just the other tackles aren't. And I have a lot of picks, so like I could easily have just made another one as a tackle, but it would have been like I would have signed a 1 year like veteran, and then I would have seen if
Yeah.
Walker Little could break out in year 3, or if so. At that point,
Yeah, Walker Little is the guy you're not giving up on in 1 year, no matter what. Like,
yeah, it
I
would
don't
have
care
to
unless
be
he's Isaiah Wilson.
terrible.
You're
Exactly,
not
it would
giving
have to
up
be
on him.
that bad for that to
Yeah.
happen. So then, yeah, so Derek Stingley, because my corner room, I got a Dory who could still be what he
Oh man.
was supposed to be, but like other than that, it's just like it's a clear weakness on the team, and it's just like other than that, we're looking at like wide receiver or maybe linebacker, but that's a little early for linebacker. So
Between him and Adoree Jackson, you would have some really fast corners.
indeed,
Assuming Adoree's still got his speed at that point with his knees, but
yep,
um, Stingley theoretically offers that sort of promise that Adoree never really delivered on, of
mm-hmm.
using that speed to actually have great effect going after the ball and getting interceptions. I mean, because that's what Stingley Jr. offers that makes him the clear number one in this draft. Is yeah, he has elite cornerback speed even for the NFL, but then on top of that, he's a turnover machine.
Yep,
And he's he's almost like less of a lockdown corner to me, and more of, I don't know if he'll actually be his own corner because he definitely plays more man, but it's like he's almost somebody that QBs are like stupidly afraid to throw, or like stupidly willing to throw at, like Jair Alexander. Like
yep.
he's just gonna make them look bad.
So then Acorn and the poll had me taking Evan Neal, which it's taking an offensive lineman. I can never be super mad at that. Like, I
Yeah,
at least have an opening
you
at guard.
especially.
So it's just like, yeah, I've been proven that I will just take the offensive lineman. Like, it's not a problem for me. I'm willing to invest in the line. So it's like, if Evan Neal is my pick there, it's not like I'm going to say it's never going to happen because that was the focus coming in this year. So, and then we
For
can
those
move on.
for those listeners who don't know, the Steelers drafted Mac Jones in the first round in our draft. Um, so Evan Neal even makes more sense for that. It's very
Yep.
common to see a team take a quarterback 1 year and an offensive tackle the next, or vice versa. Acorn maybe reading into that a little too much because, as you mentioned, you got Walker Little. You're set at offensive tackle as it is now.
Yeah, I kind of lean into that a little bit later. We can talk about that when we get there. So the Denver Broncos. This is, I think, the last one you and I agree on. But we still had Acorn picking, so not everybody agreed on it. And we both had him picking Drake Jackson. They traded Von Miller here. So they picked up an extra first-round pick, and then they traded it. But whatever. They traded Von Miller away. So this is your partner with Bradley Chubb.
Oh, you know what's really funny? I wrongly made this projection based on real life. I was thinking, oh, Von Miller might retire, so they should pick his replacement.
Nice.
Completely forgetting that they've already traded him. But ultimately, the logic comes around in a circular way and works just fine. So
yeah, I like his versatility a lot. They kind of play that hybrid kind of scheme. I can see him and Bradley Chubb working off each other pretty well.
Actually, same thing. I was thinking that I have DeMarvin Leal graded higher, but the scheme fit for Jackson and Denver's obvious. they do more with their linebackers and defensive ends as far as movement than any other team I know. That's
Hmm.
Jackson's skill set. It's absolutely not DeMarvin Leal's skill set. So
Yep.
yeah, Jackson, pretty consensus kind of pick here. And Denver loves taking pass rushers really early. They have done it
They do.
over and over and over again. With Von Miller gone, why wouldn't they do it again?
Exactly. And then Acorn had him selecting Malik Willis, which I like the pick. I mean,
Yeah, perfectly fine.
there's way too much risk in that quarterback room at that point with Sam Darnold, who they traded for my liking a ton. But I obviously believe in Malik Willis' skill set a lot, so
Yep.
it's a pick that I can definitely get behind for a team that just never has an athlete at quarterback. So then
Yeah,
we can move in. Oh, sorry. You want to say something?
just briefly. I mean, if I'm Denver, I would go for a veteran quarterback, and that's what they did with Darnold. Their drafting track record is abysmal. I know John Elway is out of there as far as GM, but I can't think of a worse team. I mean, they're worse than Chicago at this point. I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't go after Deshaun Watson or somebody else if you're
Yeah,
John Elway.
I completely agree there. So then moving on to the Atlanta Falcons, we were all different here. So this was a part of your trade with the Raiders. So you had them selecting Chris Olave.
Yeah, but this works for Atlanta, honestly.
Yep.
I mean, I actually got rid of that trade before we did this, and I just kept the players the same because it still works for Atlanta.
Well, yeah, they have to trade Julio. Well, no, they don't have to, but it seems like that's where they're going anyway. So
yes,
the writing's on the wall.
And he may not be there a full month, after next year. They might trade him again after next year, even if he stays for one more year in our league. Mm-hmm. He could retire. He could get cut. There's really no telling what could happen with that. But I love your pick of Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame. I was desperately trying to slide him in somewhere around this area, and I just couldn't really find a fit for him because I didn't really know if Atlanta needed a safety.
Yeah, so I was considering JOK a lot this year. I looked and I was thinking about taking him at 15 because there's just, I mean, obviously I didn't know Mac Jones was going to fall to me. I thought he'd be earlier. So I was like, do I take him? But every time I was watching these games, it was like every few plays, it's like Kyle Hamilton's better than him. Like, he's not the best player on the field for this defense. Like, Kyle Hamilton's making these plays for them more consistently than I would see JOK at these times. So it's like,
yeah.
Do I? So that he almost killed JOK for me as that first round spot. So seeing all of that,
you ended up being right. JOK was a huge follower in the draft, and their roles overlapped so much. Yeah. So I could see why you'd think that. And even though they technically play two different positions, JOK was kind of dropping back more than anything else.
Yeah, so I could see him being a kind of playmaker for Atlanta that they don't have at all. So kind of the same thing with you trading up to get Thibodeau with them at that time. It's just like they just don't have anything on their defense that's ever exciting. Like Deion Jones is super solid, but like they just need to make some plays like at some point. But then Acorn had them taking Desmond Ridder, and I like the pick.
Boy.
I mean, moving on from Matt Ryan at that point, or at least in the near future. So
this is the first pick I don't like.
You don't like Ridder?
No, I like Ridder. I think this makes no sense for Atlanta. I really do not believe they're moving on from Matt Ryan, even in any future year. I think he will retire a Falcon. I think it's crazy that people are talking that they're saying Matt Ryan's not good enough to win a Super Bowl when he won the MVP 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And Matt Ryan is the absolute dream quarterback for Arthur Smith, and Desmond Ridder makes absolutely no sense based on everything I've watched from Arthur Smith for several years. They're going to reload even if they somehow moved on from Matt Ryan, which I never believe they would do because they clearly brought in Arthur Smith to fix him and like get him producing at an elite level. Even if they said that was a failure and fired Arthur Smith after 1 year, I think they'd go veteran again. I don't like that pick at all. Not to be rude to Acorn, I just think.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about it.
I strongly disagree.
I didn't think about scheme fit at all. And also, there is the Matt Ryan could easily have a year where he is at that level again. Because, it's the Shanahan-ish system is what Arthur Smith runs. It's very similar. It borrows a lot of concepts. And that was exactly what Matt Ryan put the MVP numbers up with. And he hasn't been the same since. So maybe you could argue.
Interestingly, they don't have Kyle Pitts in our league. But they do in real life. and that's what actually matters because
Yeah,
that will help Matt Ryan succeed and keep us overall high and keep the Falcons from thinking about moving on in our league. So,
yeah,
if anything, maybe they'll see Kyle Pitts have this dominant year with Matt Ryan and the whole like tight end play action boot offense thing that Arthur Smith is going to try and put in there, and then which I certainly think is going to work because
yep,
Tannehill and Matt Ryan are extremely similar, and
yep.
then there and then I think the Falcons owner might go, hey, they need a weapon. He needs somebody beyond Calvin Ridley if Julio's gone, thus Chris Olave.
Yeah, I understand that logic. I didn't even think about the
Yeah.
scheme fit. I just thought, like, oh, yeah, okay, I can see it moving on. Okay, anyway, we will move on to the 8th pick, the Cincinnati Bengals. And you had them taking DeMarvin Leal at A&M.
Yep. I was looking for a team this high that had that classic, almost like Michael Strahan style, do it all left end position where Leal can really explode. His power bull rush style, big size, long arms. And Cincinnati's the absolute perfect fit team for that. I think, you're correct with your pick and your read on what Houday might actually do. But if I were the Bengals, I would sprint to the podium to take DeMarvin Leal. And I
Yeah, I
wanted to
like
take him ahead of
DeMarvin
this.
Leal.
But
But I
there's
think
two
that,
other pass rushers,
oh, yeah. I like that. I just, for Evan Neal, for them, also it's part of just Evan Neal falling a bit for me. It's just like he's so good at this point.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and I think me and Acorn had a similar like line where we're thinking offensive line still, and maybe that's just not a belief in the guy they took. But I tell Jonah Williams hasn't been able to stay healthy. If he has
No, and
another,
they took Kyle Pitts in our league. So you're all
yeah, for
set.
sure. Well, they
Yeah.
took they had a second first round pick, and they took
Oh,
uh,
Dylan Radunes, of course.
Radoon.
Tennessee Titan, future Hall of Famer Dylan Radunes.
But like Jonah Williams, if he gets hurt again, do you want to bank
Yeah.
on him being your franchise left tackle
No,
still? So
not
it's
at
just
all.
like, or even if he just
And
doesn't play great, you can kick him into guard, and you
yeah,
can have Evan Neal there at tackle. So that's where I see this fitting in. I don't think that their line's going to be good enough at this point with what they've done. They've done a better job, I think, than their real life counterparts. But I just think that they're still going to need that extra piece to kind of put their line where it needs to be able to do the things they want to do.
it's a great call. I would love to draft him there, but obviously he was gone number one in my mock, so was not on my mind.
Yeah, and then kind of talking about him being gone, I don't know if I like Acorn's selection of Zion Nelson. I
Yeah.
like him. I have him going, I think I have 8 picks later, but like I have him going in the first, mid first. I don't see top 10 when I like he'd have to grow a bit to kind of use those tools, but I don't see this being where they would go. I think with Leal still there, I think for him, that's kind of where I would go if there's no Evan Neal there at this
When you
point.
say grow a little bit, I assume you
Not
mean grow physically because
no, he's a
240
beast of a
pounds.
person. No, not. I think he's fine. Like, yeah, he does need to get, I guess, a little bit. I was thinking growing just like his production, I guess. So maybe
Oh
that is
no, I
actually
mean
a
I just
bigger.
think he's undersized.
Well, that
He
could be
weighs 200.
true. I
He's a
didn't really
240
think about
pound
that.
left tackle. I don't know an
Is he
NFL
really?
starting left tackle who's that small.
Wait, is he really 240?
Yeah, and that's why I
Huh.
don't have him in the first round. He is
Okay.
so weird, and
Well, in that
he
case,
has
then
good
yeah, put
tape.
on 20
I
pounds.
mean, and there's other people who at other positions certainly that get over that size limitation. And by the way, 6'4" is not tall for an offensive tackle either,
It's not. Yeah.
by any means. His arms are long, like he's got that good wingspan. But I look, you're
240.
picking in
Wow.
the top 10 here. You're picking a future starter to go up against those giant AFC North pass rushers. I can't understand that pick.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know he was 240. I was thinking he was light, but not that light.
yeah, no, it's
So
remarkable. It's his
kind
defining
kind of
characteristic.
a kind of I've looked a
But
little bit on tape, but I haven't
I
looked
like
in
him.
a ton.
I think like day two though,
Okay.
just because of that.
Well, that was okay. I didn't know he was that light. So moving
Yeah.
on to the 9 pick, Carolina Panthers, and so that was the struggle with me here for them. It was I just didn't have a quarterback left that I really liked because I'm not as big on Ritter. So it's just like, what do they do? But you had them taking Ritter, and
Yep.
again, this is kind of I'm just not projecting quite as much for him as you guys are, but I can definitely see it there. Like I can see it.
their offense is loaded. I
Yeah,
really blame Teddy Bridgewater. I think they could improve a lot, and a running QB would really help Christian McCaffrey. I feel like a Vince Young, Chris Johnson vibe there, where when they're focused on being patient and safe on the edge, the defense that is, to contain Ritter, they would really then struggle with McCaffrey as a receiver. And I know they kept Curtis Samuel in our league, right? Even though he's gone in real life.
I think they
And a
kept
lot
him.
of
Yeah.
a lot of people see Sam blowing up in Washington and continuing to be great, which will really help the Panthers. The weapons with an actual franchise quarterback, Carolina becomes an instant contender in a pretty weak division. Um, the only question is, you're committing to kind of a run first quarterback. That's a big thing to do. It can lose you your job, but Matt Rhule has a lot of prestige. He's a very entrenched coach at this point. I think he can get away with it.
Yeah. So then Acorn and I had him going Olave, and I think
Yep.
there's a little bit of the not fully remembering who their receivers were for me. It's
They
like,
lost Robbie Anderson, I believe, though,
yeah,
in our
so like
league.
they don't have
Yeah.
two. Like even if they had Robbie
No.
Anderson, they don't have like two. I couldn't remember if
And
they
in
had
real
Curtis Samuel
life,
for
they
sure.
drafted Terrace Marshall, but I
Yep.
don't think they did in this league. So it's all over the place. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's just I think like the weapon would have been something that like I assume going veteran quarterback because I think their defense is
Yeah.
going to start to be ready at that point, and I think that their offense, while their offensive line is kind of brutal, but kind of for the same thing, I didn't think this was the range for a Zion Nelson. I think it's a second round need for them. So it was just like, what do I do? We'll get him somebody who gets open very quickly. And Chris Olave, if we can't fix
Yeah,
the
I would
line.
love Olave here. He's gone in my mock.
Yep. So then on to the New York Jets. So you had them going tight end with
Yep,
Jalen
this is a
Weidemeyer.
bit of a shock, and Jets fans might have some bad memories of early first round tight ends. But Weidemeyer is so fascinating to me. He, along with Ritter, are the two guys in this draft who I feel like their stock is going to go way up. Um, I don't think NFL fans really understand how difficult it is to get a rookie tight end on the field in most tight ends coming out of college because there's so many of them are either true blocking tight ends or true flex tight ends, and they're in these boxes and they're just giant, receiving tight ends who are just pure like red zone, or they're blocking. And Weidemeyer is the only guy in this draft who you just plug in day one at inline tight end Jason Witten, goes to work blocking, does the hard stuff over the middle, catching the ball, and he just instantly makes any team that has him better. He's going to be a top five tight end in the NFL. I am a huge fan of his, and I think I don't think he's going to do that much better in college than he has. It's just that NFL teams are gonna see this guy and what role he'd have in their offense and be like, yeah, we can go get him. And with the Jets, they're loaded at wide receiver, particularly they don't have a superstar. They have
Mm-hmm.
Mims, Corey Davis,
Juju.
and Juju, and but you get that fifth weapon, and then you're running back. Those are your five eligible receivers. They're not running a fullback. I could see the offense just exploding with Weidemeyer in there.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment of Weidemeyer. I like him a lot, but my worry is I don't think, and this is kind of just my overall philosophy with tight ends. It's just a little bit different. I really only think there's like three guys. Like it's like Kittle, Kelsey, and like Gronk at that time, like are like actually true difference makers from the tight end position. That are
What you
like
mean right now?
not right now. Gronk's not quite at that level. It's
Yeah, Darren Waller.
Waller.
Yeah,
Waller.
okay. I was like,
Yep.
I was like,
I was
whoa,
blanking on the
whoa,
third
whoa.
name, but Kelsey, but like
Yeah, yeah.
Gronk, but like there's only like a few at any point that like are
Yep.
true difference makers over like an
Yep.
average tight end, and I can see him being that, but it's just such a hard step to take. It's easy to get to you're a good tight end. It's even
Yeah.
relatively easy to get to a top 10 tight end at this
Yeah.
point because it shuffles so much and there isn't any difference really. And I could see him getting there. It's just, is that value there for the 10 pick is kind of why I wasn't thinking it, but like it's not something that I would be tearing apart based off how good I think he's going to be. So it's just
You
like,
make
I
a
get it.
fair argument in that there has been chaos at tight end in the last few years in the NFL. There's been no way to tell who's going to be any good. There hasn't been a lot of depth at that upper level. It's been very thin. And maybe that would be a problem for him. I just see him jumping into that group and being on a Kyle Pitts level within a year or two.
Also worth noting that tight end is basically across the league, your production and your efficiency is almost exclusively related to your targets. If you give tight ends enough targets, they produce at a very steady level. So even if he doesn't raise that level a ton, he is a reliable option, a good route runner to get open. So
if you're on the field, you're going to get
yeah,
targets. He's going to be on the field.
exactly. So I think from that aspect, if they're willing to focus on it enough, because they don't have a true elite weapon, so it's going to be balanced. And if you can keep that balance and get him 10 targets, like he will produce. So I
think
like
they
that from
think
that
that Corey
aspect.
Davis is the guy for them. I just don't think that, because out of 4 years of evidence.
Yep. So then Acorn, I'm taking Kyle Hamilton, which they keep trying to trade Marcus May. Like they just want him gone. So
For
to kind of
some
replace,
indiscernible reason.
yeah, exactly. I don't know exactly why they don't like him. They want to get rid of him so bad, but Kyle Hamilton is just a playmaker, like I talked about. I think it fits in well with their defense. And then I had them fixing a little bit of their cornerback room. It's too good of a class for them not to take one. It's pretty deep. There's like 8 guys I could see going in the range of their first 3 picks. So Kair Elam, sorry, names, out of Florida. I just think he, in that fire of the SEC, I think he's going to hold his own and win a lot of matchups, and he's going to have that experience coming in, kind of like we talked about with J.C. Horn. It's like he's just facing all these guys, and he's doing well. So I think he translates.
That's funny.
Well.
I was thinking about J.C. Horn too. It's kind of a J.C. Horn pick where it's a huge projection, but it's less like that. Only that he kind of proved himself at Florida.
Yeah.
I'm actually a little worried about him, but I'll get into that when we.
And like the thing that worries me about all of these corners projecting him is cornerback play is so volatile, and he can play the same, but he get burned on double moves or he'll get beat. Like it's so volatile. Like one play changes your entire season outlook. So it's just so tough at corner to see these guys holding their place. But so we're gonna try to pick up the pace here now that we're out of the top 10. So we're gonna move on to the New Orleans Saints.
And yeah, it's a player I've already talked a lot about, so we'll keep it quick. Malik Willis, quarterback, Liberty. The reason that I had those issues with Detroit was the pro transition, but where would you possibly go better than New Orleans with Sean Payton, at least for a few more years, where he loves these small school, weird quarterbacks who face a lot of adversity. It's like the only team I'd want him to go to in the first round, and conveniently the value was there, and they're probably looking for their long-term quarterback by 2022.
Yeah, it's only like if they do good enough this year, they might try to stay all in through when all of their picks are still gone. But yeah,
interestingly, this is this strange conditional pick that we really don't know what pick they're going to have this year, because it could be my pick, it could be the Jaguars pick. The Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence could be anywhere in this list. You kind of put them somewhat near the middle. So
and so they could be a bottom team, they could be a playoff team, and then they have 2 playoff picks they're dealing with, and then it's really rough. But then I had them taking Christian Harris, kind of fitting into that they're trying to stay all in mode, because I had them just missing the playoffs. So they just missed the playoffs. They're really close, and like the cap's going to be a little bit better for them next year. They might be able to break through that, and maybe Tampa Bay falls off, and they're there. Is kind of what I'm thinking. So I went with just a super solid linebacker who I think can contribute day one and kind of fill a gaping hole in the middle of their defense.
Looks like you have them like around 8 and 9, which usually when teams are around there, they're not thinking, oh, we're gonna rebuild and take our franchise quarterback. They're like, let's keep pushing and make the playoffs, especially in a pretty winnable division. So yeah, I could totally see Harris, and they've taken a lot of Alabama players too. So.
Yep. So then on to the Giants. You haven't taken Kyle Hamilton. Talked about him a lot.
We've talked about him plenty. I wanted to put him in earlier. I just couldn't find a team where it made sense. Finally, the Giants pair him with Jabril Peppers. They get that second really good safety. I assume they still have Jabril Peppers in our league. And this is sort of like a steal, and I could actually see some other team moving up to one of these picks ahead of them to try and jump for Willis or Kyle Hamilton, because it seems like a volatile part of the draft on my list.
Yeah, same here.
Ritter,
so then
Hillis,
I have them taking a swing on 2019 Caden Slovis, not 2020 Caden Slovis. 2019. I don't love it, but I think Daniel Jones isn't going to work out for them. I could see them going the veteran route. because their team's getting close, and that's kind of why they're here. It's because their team was too good for a bad Daniel Jones to tank them, based off how I think the season's going to go. So it's like, do you take another swing on another rookie? You keep the cheap contract, but it's probably not going to work at this point. It's more of a dart throw at this point in the draft. I could see them going with Ritter because he's still available for me. So I could see them going Ritter just because what's the worst case? We're just
that would be a real stylistic change for the Giants.
Yeah, exactly.
Eli Manning, Daniel Jones. Yeah.
But it would just be, they don't really have great receivers. They have gadget players, not necessarily gadget, but they fill a role. The Slaytons, your slants or goes.
Oh, I think the Giants receivers are among the best in the NFL. Oh, but they don't have Kenny Galladay in this league.
They don't have Kenny Galladay. Yep. So that's why
that's a big difference.
So the traditional quarterback is kind of hindered there. So you could see them we're not hampering any of our guys by going with a Ritter running, but I just stuck with the kind of traditional. We're trying to have that quarterback who can run an offense and take advantage of weapons. So that's why I went Slovis. Not a
I like Slovis for the value here. Yeah. I cannot imagine, barring a season-ending injury, that they give up on Daniel Jones after next year. Not because I think Daniel Jones is some world beater, but the weapons are so good. Oh, you know what? You know why this pick makes sense? Is because the Giants in our league actually are tanking.
Yeah.
I would actually be shocked if, even as good as parts of the roster are, if they got to the 12th pick. Come to think of it, they probably should go quarterback. But Kyle Hamlin's too good. You have to take him if he's available.
Yeah, if he's available, I understand that. It's but
Slovis actually makes a lot more sense now that I think about it.
There's one guy that I did not like them passing on, but they traded for Calais Campbell. They traded their second-round pick for him. And
so you're saying your next pick?
So my next pick, the 13th pick, Miami Dolphins, DeMarvin Leal.
Whoa! Acorn took Weidemeyer here just to.
Oh, we didn't do Acorn past the top 10. So.
Oh, never mind. All right. Fair enough.
But so then I had Leo going 13 to the Dolphins. I just think he's too good of a player to still be here. And the Lions, the fucking Dolphins have so many picks. That's you take the best player available. It's just you take it. You keep adding talent to that roster. They don't have any holes. At this point, you're not going to find anything better than Tua anyway. And I think that Tua could have a decent year, decent enough to keep, testing him through the contract at least. Because if he doesn't work out, you're looking veteran at this point.
It's funny, we were really on the same wavelength here. Zach Harrison for me, from Ohio State to Miami. Extremely similar player to DeMarvin Leal, but DeMarvin Leal was off my board. So, another big sort of 4-3-N style run defending left end. The thing about him over Leal is just the better player, but Harrison I feel has really high upside. Some of the plays he makes are unbelievable. It's almost like a Jason Pierre-Paul kind of vibe where normally he just kind of looks like a run defender, and then he just shucks the tackle and just blows up the play way more often than you'd expect. So I'm really high on Harrison. I think most people don't have him as high as I do at this point. But yeah, I like him in Miami.
Yep.
And I would give him Leal ahead of Harrison, but yeah.
Yeah. And then the Baltimore Ravens at 14, you have them taking Rasheed Walker out of Penn State.
Yep.
Like the pick.
So dude's just got 8-foot long arms. And I think that is kind of the key to those AFC North pass rushers, is they also have really long arms. Like Myles Garrett is an ogre of a person, and so you just he's the kind of guy you want. And I know that the Ravens owner in our league, would like to add at this position. And I also think the coaching for Walker, he got a lot of specific direction from James Franklin, who's just somebody who I feel can put players into the NFL, and I trust people coming out of Penn State, this couple of years, especially Walker. He seems like he was the focal point for the coaching.
He also could have been a second-round pick this year. He decided to go back, so I think he's.
Well, he kind of was smart. He got into a bit of a weaker offensive line class, and people now have him usually in the mid-first, late first.
Yep. And then I had him taking George Karlaftis to Purdue. I see the flashes of what I would want from a player kind of in the AFC North, defensive lineman. A little bit more of protection. So, and this is kind of a guy I wish I watched a little bit more before going into it, but mock drafts or consensus boards kind of had him here, so this is kind of where I stuck with.
Karlaftis was my steal player who I wanted to sound impressive because neither of you would have him. and then you put him higher than me. So I felt a little dumb about that. Because he's done nothing in college. He had a 6-sack season at basically defensive tackle his first year at a small school, and then didn't really play last year. But I think he was like first team all freshman, and people are kind of forgetting about him. But then some of those ranking sites, as you said, like know about him. So yeah, he's a guy who could be in the first round or he could be in the 7th round based on how next year, or I don't really see him declaring, to be quite honest with you.
Oh, totally.
Given that he's played so little.
Unless he's just good. But yeah, I could totally see somebody telling him like, "Hey, you still have the stuff, but you didn't do it. Like you need to."
Although if he's getting drafted by Baltimore this early, by all means go into the draft. But
for sure. So then moving on, pick 15, the Arizona Cardinals. We both originally agreed on my person, but then you
on Garrett Wilson.
You decided to change it.
So I made a change because of a discussion we were having on Discord last night about sort of the kinds of receivers that we like. And Mechie the Third was actually a little bit flying under my radar in general, and I didn't even have him in the first round. And then I went back and watched his freshman year, and I just thought he was more impressive. He's a weird player because he hasn't played much, obviously, because at Alabama, you just wouldn't. With injury and COVID, he didn't play much last year, and he came from Canada. He was like, they had this like pipeline program thing where they were like looking at Canadian players, and that's how he got to Alabama. And then he was like literally the last player on their wide receiver depth chart when he got there. But he's become an NFL draftable first round caliber, Alabama receiver, and obviously that program has been churning out by far the best receivers of any school except maybe LSU. But like I said, trying to keep this quick. I love the physical style, route running. He kind of like leans on defenders, just like pushes them out of the way. And watching that, I was like, wait a minute, this is what we were just talking about the kind of receiver I want to draft. And Wilson is kind of the opposite. So I was feeling good about Mechie there.
See, Wilson, I just think he fits kind of the Arizona Cardinals kind of thing. So I think D-Hop's your contested catch type of guy. So like that's why Wilson was the pick here. I obviously like Mechie because we'll talk about later. So it wasn't necessarily me. I think Garrett Wilson could come out here and look better than Olave. Like I just think it could happen based off of kind of what I've seen. Like you could see him having a little bit more growth and being there, just like as a player, not growing big wise, like we talked about earlier. But I can see it with him. It's just a matter of if it's a lot of these come down to preferences, and so that's why I think with me trying to fit into Arizona's scheme, I would pick Wilson at this point.
I feel like Cliff Kingsbury is going to get fired, and
I think so too.
I don't think he's kind of becoming a garbage fire, and so who knows what they're going to do. But it is interesting that we both went receiver. I stole Larry Fitzgerald away from them. Like John Brown is long gone. He's so. They're other than DeAndre Hopkins, they really do need a number 2, and they should be developing one.
And they did get a bigger guy. What's out of Oklahoma State? What's his name? I drafted him.
No, they didn't get Tylan Wallace.
Yeah, they got Tylan Wallace. They did in 3rd.
No.
Yes, here they got Tylan Wallace.
Oh, in our league. Okay.
Yeah. So they already have a bigger kind of like possession guy to go opposite of the.
Yeah, Tylan Wallace went to Baltimore in real life.
Yeah, in real life he went. Okay. Yeah, so I was saying in here, not in real life. Sorry, that kind of confusing. But anyway, moving on to the 16th pick, New England
Speaking
Patriots. Speaking of growing, Zion Nelson. I think that I had him picked here. I could see. I didn't really think about Rasheed Walker this early, and that's somebody maybe I wish I picked here. But I'm going to stick with my pick just because I think he could actually grow a bit. And if there's a place that I'm going to have to develop an offensive lineman, New England. I mean, you can see them putting him into being a good right tackle for them. And that is a need because they did not get from Oakland. They didn't get that trade for him. Who was it? Shit. Anyway, from they got in real life, they didn't get that tackle. So they have Cannon right now as their starting right tackle. So it's going to be a need in the near future. But then you had
I went Carl Loftus here.
Yep.
I've already gone over him a lot. 1-year wonder, kind of a huge projection. But New England is the kind of outside the box thinking where that makes sense. I feel like he's a Belichick kind of pick. they could really use just like a nasty D lineman. Their edge talent has kind of softened up a little bit. And I actually kind of like Zion Nelson to New England too, even though I'm not a huge fan of Nelson. New England is the place where I'd like to see him.
Yep. So then moving on to the pick 17, Miami Dolphins. You have them taking Christian Harris, who we talked about.
We've been all over him. Incredibly fast linebacker, not quite Ryan Shazier, but like on that level coming out of college. Except that he is not even so much of a pass coverage linebacker, which is usually what you're thinking with speedy inside linebackers. He's like a hybrid, like inside rush kind of guy. Not really much of like a field general either. Which when you think of like Alabama middle linebacker, maybe like Rashawn Evans, like really running the defense, he doesn't really do a lot. Like he's kind of in a limited role. But he's kind of theoretically their star defensive player next year with a whole another season of tape. I think he will kind of become that field general type dude, like 3-down linebacker. So this is a big projection, and actually you two have him even higher than me. So, but I think he's going to grow a lot.
Yeah, I kind of had him higher because the trust in kind of Alabama and stepping up to be the star of that defense. And then I had them taking George Pickens out of Georgia. It's kind
totally forgot about him. Should have been in my top 32, no doubt.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of it's a little bit of projection just because it's Georgia, so there always is that weird part of their offense where it doesn't seem to work sometimes. But I think he has the talent to do it.
That's the charitable way of saying it.
Yeah. And then moving on to pick 18, the Chicago Bears.
So Andrew Booth Jr., dude, the interception he made against Virginia last year, like him and Sam Howell, like when you proposed doing this side-by-side mock draft, I was like, all right, where am I putting Sam Howell? Where am I putting Andrew Booth Jr.? Dude, he was on my mind. Unbelievable ball hawk, lanky corner. And I have him ahead of Kaiir Elam, which is, I think, pretty controversial. But I think teams are going to he's just going to blow up the combine because he's like a Byron Jones type of dude. So that's why I like him this high. To Chicago, they could go anywhere except quarterback. Oh, wait, you haven't taken a quarterback?
Well, so
did
they
not
Big Ben
get a quarterback?
They got Big Ben.
Oh, I was thinking about Justin Fields, man.
Yeah,
they don't have Justin Fields.
I
my bad. Yeah, okay, then that makes sense. Yeah.
So the thing with if they moved on from Big Ben and went a veteran route, like I think there's going to be veterans available. You can see them just sending the farm for Watson or something, Yeah. So I think that's fine. Like going elsewhere, and also Fuller's probably gone at that point. They didn't cut him here, but they're probably not going to re-sign him at that point. So kind of a replacement there. But yeah, I went Ritter here. Kind of like I think they were a borderline playoff team. They just missed the wild card by a game over Minnesota. So okay, we're just going to go, into the gadget offense a little bit. But that can get you into the playoffs, especially with that defense. So, and I think he can develop enough as a passer to give them. I mean, they just don't have any good quarterbacks ever. So even if he can just run the ball well, that's better than what they've had.
So moving on to Miami here, I went Kaiir Elam. I thought his tape was really inconsistent. He got burnt too often. I thought effort in the run game was really sloppy. And frankly, if I wanted to go full hot take, I would have dropped him out of the first round. However, I don't know enough people. That was the problem.
Yeah.
I got to the end of the first round. I was like, wait a minute, I have
let me jump
I have
in.
to have
the
Elam
Philadelphia Eagles with pick 19.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yep, yeah. It's okay. It's because it got traded around a bunch. So this is the
Yeah.
Eagles pick. Kaiir Elam, but makes sense. I mean, going corner, both of us were thinking the same thing. I still had Andrew Booth available, so that was a pretty easy pick for me at this point to take Booth. I was like, yeah, I think he's gonna be a stud too. So we kind of both talked about both of them. But for me, this would be a pretty decent steal at this point, just because I think the physical upside for Elam. But I do understand your concerns with Elam in general, and the bust potential for him is, I mean, the bust potential on corner in general is pretty high, but he is not an exception to that. So
they got receiver last year, or I should say this year in our draft in round 2. I don't remember who they took, but they took Elijah Moore maybe. Anyway.
Yeah, they might have. But then moving on to pick 20,
we're on the same wavelength again here, more or less.
We're thinking O-line. We're thinking we're going to beef up that.
I mean, I pretty much project them in O-lineman every year, and they never seem to do it. So
yeah, this year they didn't take. I don't know why they didn't take Darisaw sitting there. In real life, you were able to fleece somebody in the Jets to move back and take Darisaw anyway. But here they didn't do anything to adjust that. They didn't just take Darisaw. So they got decent value, but I don't think they could have just taken O-line with the rest of the value they got. So both of us are thinking we got to go O-line. I went Charles Cross out of Mississippi State. I think in the SEC's held his own so far.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can continue to kind of take a step forward and show
So
that
it's
he's
interesting.
doing high
So
level.
Cross has played tackle and guard.
Yep.
And a lot of people think he's moving to guard. Kenyon Green just played guard and is the best at it in the country, like at his position. So this, our side-by-side picks here are kind of the debate. Do you take a tackle and move him to guard, or do you just take the best guard? And I've always been on the side of I've been on the side of just take the guard debate. So
yeah, I think that if you're talking about taking a guard here, Kenyon Green would be the choice. I wouldn't mess with Charles Cross. I think Cross as a tackle could be an option for them because their left tackle hasn't been particularly great at times. I think their right side is relatively strong, if I remember correctly, but they just can't do anything to the left side. And also with their scheme, like their tackles, like their right tackle isn't even a good pass blocker. He's just a great run blocker. They're just trying to, kind of boot action and that kind of stuff and run the ball well. So even if Charles Cross
use tight ends, more than anybody for run blocking.
Yep.
And so I was thinking a pass blocker for them, and Green is just a great phone booth pass blocking guard. He just sits down one-on-one and just wins. And I think Cross is similar, except he's a lot taller. And I literally was thinking about Cross as a guard, not a tackle. But yeah, if you do really great him out as an NFL left tackle, I think he actually makes more sense than Green probably. And I have Cross going in a few picks. So.
Yep, it's a big year for him. If he can't prove he's a tackle, I think he's an early second prospect. If he stays where he is, just because guard isn't quite as valuable, you have to be really good at guard to kind of do that. So then with pick 21, I'm back up with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I had him taking John Mechie, as we talked about earlier, for the same reasons we talked about liking him in general at 16 is exactly why I took him here. Also, he's practiced with Mac Jones. That kind of connection with them is never a bad thing, but was the receiver I would have taken here anyway.
Yep, so I went Perry and Winfrey, defensive end out of Oklahoma. However, as I've looked at your depth chart more throughout this, I think that pick no longer makes sense. But I'm just going to talk about what I like about Winfrey anyway. He is a really good combination of speed rush, but also when he does get taken on and doesn't just win, he has really good bend and is super productive as a pass rusher from a big school. I think he's just a lock first-round pick, and I was looking at places he could go, and for whatever reason, I thought, yeah, Pittsburgh needs another pass rusher, because I think maybe in real life you do, but maybe not in this league. I don't know.
So I traded to it, and I think he could. So I took Osa, and honestly, Osa's a risky pick. So, it's not unreasonable for me to say that, with him sitting there, I could be going D-line here. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I thought you were going with that, and I totally understood it. I have a lot of picks.
Yeah, him at 5-tech is, he's not a conventional 5-tech, but, I imagine the Steelers' defensive line to be pretty, multiple, and you're just putting Winfrey in on third down in some way that makes him work.
Yeah, I mean, that's
same thing with Osa, really.
Tuitt's very multiple.
Tuitt,
he's filled out a lot, and he's a true 3-down guy now. But coming in, he was not that. In the first, even when he was a starter, we were still, stunts and stuff like that to try to keep him free. So it was not. We didn't use him traditionally like you would expect.
I didn't know who to pick with this upcoming Tennessee Titans pick for my own team. I ended up settling on Garrett Wilson because I don't know the rest of the players super well. This is sort of where I actually had Wilson up higher earlier, but then I moved Mechie up there, so Wilson had to fall down somewhere. And I thought this is the next team that could use a wide receiver, has an obvious role. I have a lot of depth in that I have Larry Fitzgerald, who will almost certainly be retired by the time this draft comes around. And then Mecole Hardman and, I only have him on a one-year deal, so it doesn't matter. Mecole Hardman and John Brown. But all those guys are role players. I would love to have a really solidified top 5 eligible receivers on a given play, and Wilson just lines up next to AJ Brown. And if the Titans get Julio in real life, this trade's going to look silly, but this pick's going to look silly, but that's why it's a mock draft.
And then, so I had you taking Weidemeyer. It's Weidemeyer because he's that dude, and the offense is going to be probably similar enough. So
Yeah.
fills a hole in your offense. I'm
Jared
sure if
Cook
he was
is
available.
very likely. I have Jared Cook, but he's probably a cap casualty next year, so Weidemeyer's fine in that respect. But I
Yep.
do have Anthony Ferkser technically, and I just signed Samus Reyes. Breaking news.
Which he's an
So
undrafted guy, so it's just so volatile.
whoa,
But
he's not an undrafted. I mean, he's technically an undrafted guy,
yeah, he's
but
technically undrafted and
I
actually
hope that
undrafted.
by the 2022 season, like by the time Weidermeyer would be here, he will be my full-time starter over Ferkser. I think he's that good in real life. And I think Ferkser will still have a role, like as that third down kind of slot guy. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, but Reyes is my Antonio Gates, hopefully.
Well, I hope it works for you as well.
Yeah. Well,
So
if it
then,
doesn't in a year, we could take Weidermeyer.
so
I
you
like
and
him a
I
lot.
again on the same wavelength here for 23 of
Yep.
the Detroit Lions. Both of us, we talked about it earlier, how they actually could use a number 2 corner in this class. We just didn't think it had to be Stingley. And
Yep.
you went with Josh Jobe out of Alabama.
Yep.
With
At this point, I was running out of players I knew really well, but Job's a good athlete, great technique, and I was like, gotta get him in the first round somewhere. And as you were saying, I think they could pair him with Akuda and be really good and really young and cheap.
Yeah, a lot of these corners are pretty close for me. He actually didn't end up in the first round, which is like a kind of thing I was like, I wish I had him somewhere. But I took Sevyn Banks out of Ohio State. I kind of just there's a little bit of that like, oh, we just have 2 Ohio State corners, which could be good or bad, I guess. But it's kind of that thing. It's the same reason why you like the Cowboys taking Surtain, because it's like you have them matched up. So even if they didn't necessarily play together a lot, it's still just nice to have that working for you.
It seems like teams are doing it more and more. The Bengals took Jamar Chase and all that.
And then so pick 24, which is the Eagles have it.
We can't keep getting away with this. Although I will say, I was imagining Charles Cross as a big guard here.
Yeah.
But you took Rasheed Walker as well for the Eagles, so we were both thinking, you've just got your quarterback, you're rebuilding. What are you going to do on a team where you could take almost any position, offensive line?
Yep. And they're trading a lot of their offensive line, so it's going to be a
that was the other big part of it. Yes, they are currently shopping Brandon Brooks and Jason Kelsey, I think.
Yep, and they have it. They talked about having a trade done because they took him off the block for Lane Johnson, or maybe it was Kelsey. Or
someone. Well, we'll
either
talk
way,
about that trade later.
Everything's open for them. So
yeah, I was thinking Cross or even Linderbaum here. I was really thinking more interior offensive line.
Totally get it.
But Walker's a great pick. I mean, if he were here, I'd probably take him.
And that's kind of part of the thing. I kind of wish Rasheed Walker's a little bit higher. So maybe switch him and Cross for me, and we have the same picks. But then on to pick 25, which is the LA Chargers, who I had them doing very well this year because I think that defense is going to be pretty good. Kind of getting Derwin James back. Hopefully he's actually healthy this year. I think they're going to be better in real life. So maybe that's part of the thing, like their real life moves are kind of bleeding into this projection for them being this late. But either way, so I had them going Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa. I just think he's a stud. I mean, at center probably for him. They couldn't get Lindsey because the Packers re-signed him. So they signed Alex Mack, and they signed him for a ton. I don't think that's going to work after this year. So worst case, though, Mack's still your center, and you play Linderbaum at guard. They don't have a great line. They're better, but they don't have a great line.
I love it. I was thinking about him here. I was thinking about him to Philly, to the Titans. Couldn't decide where I wanted to put Linderbaum. He ended up falling a little farther for me. But Ahmad Gardner is a dude who I was trying to fit into a position because he's a great talent. A fun little trivia: the Chargers, when they drafted Jason Verrett, he was the shortest starting quarterback in the NFL. And Gardner, if drafted, would be the tallest starting quarterback in the NFL at 6'4". He is insanely lanky. He's really good at fighting with big receivers. And man, Sammy Watkins, not Henry Ruggs anymore, but Jerry Jeudy, Keenan Allen. You got a lot of big dudes, and I think the AFC West is a place where that can make sense. He's also, despite being a hulk of a cornerback, has been extremely productive and has 6 interceptions in like 20 college games. And if he keeps producing at that level, he's pretty much a lock to be a late first round pick like this.
Yep, I totally get it. And then back to Detroit. Both of us doubled up on defense here at the
Yep.
end of the first, which their defense has a lot of holes. Their offensive line's really good. So, like, if you're trying to fill out needs, it's like wide receiver or defense.
Yep.
So you got him going Ventrell Miller out of Florida.
Ventrell Miller, probably the biggest risk to him being not to his first round status would be a suspension for him actually like killing an offensive player because he hits so hard. I don't know that I've ever seen a college player who just so routinely just demolishes receivers over the middle. Especially, he's not even like a real like edge to edge like tackling hard hitter, but like he who's that Bengals Vontaze Burfict? He's just like Vontaze Burfict. Dude. You just want him on your defense, and hopefully he's not crazy.
Hopefully
but yeah,
he's not crazy.
I'm a big Miller fan, dude. The only thing about him is he's not really like a coverage linebacker in the sense of like covering people. He just wants to hurt them, which ultimately does help in pass coverage. But he's kind of a 2-down linebacker, and then his best skill is like tackling receivers. So it's kind of a weird fit. That's why I have him this late in the first round.
Yeah, so then I had him taking Aiden Hutchinson, who he fractured his leg. So that's like kind of those are injuries you can come back from, but there's the injury kind of component to this. But I just think he's flexible on the defensive line, and their pieces kind of are flexible like that. So I think he could fit in with their group and be productive for them.
Hutchinson was on my list. He was one of the few like players I was sure about first round grade wise, who I just didn't find a team for at the end here.
So then moving on to the 27th pick, which is the Cleveland Browns, if they don't trade it. So we were in the same kind of wavelength with this one too, just different players.
Yeah, Jordan Battle. This was just a sort of a big board spot where I felt he could fit here. They could use a safety, and I had him ranked a lot higher than this. Just wanted to get him on the board. He's not like the amazing athlete that Hamilton is, but he seems really well coached, really smart, and just doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's more of a just reliable tackler kind of safety. Like I don't throw around box safety unless they really are a box safety, but he kind of has that skill set.
Yeah, so then I am picking Boa Bolden. Kind of went with because Delpit's bigger too. I kind of went with just like we're gonna have big ass safeties, and they're both actually fast, so it's not like you're sacrificing speed for that. So I just kind of went with that. They both are kind of hybrid guys, so you worry a little bit about the coverage part of it. So that's why I could see Battle going there. I just think that those two together could really cause some havoc because both of them could be in any position on any play. So that's where I went with their pick, kind of keeping their defense just super versatile because John Johnson, they wanted really badly. And I could see, he's a little bigger than Johnson, I think. But, like, that's kind of a similar role as I could see him playing for their defense. But obviously, I like to pick a Jordan Battle.
Your next pick to the Jets, Breece Hall. Is he the Iowa running back?
Iowa State.
Yeah, man. I took a look at him. I don't know that he's an NFL player, man. I don't see it. He has like that Devin Singletary problem of like, what does he do well? I don't get it. I'd love to hear your take on this.
Okay, I like.
They have Trey Sermon. Remember, they have Trey Sermon too.
Yeah, so that was the part I wasn't sure about. Breece Hall for me is the guy that I want as like the Steelers. Like I've looked at him and it's just like I want him on my team. It's just, and I understand what you're saying. It's just like, oh, he kind of is the Devin Singletary kind of thing, but I just think he's a much better athlete than Singletary. Like I think he's gonna run in like 4.4s, like low 4.4, and I think that's gonna be the difference between him and Singletary.
Well, that would change my mind on him.
Yeah, it's just like I think he's pretty solid in the receiving game. I think last 2 years he has 50 catches on. So he's not like elite necessarily, but like he's getting targets, and he's catching them, and he's putting up decent numbers. So like he's a good receiver. He's not on a killer team. He's not playing in a terribly difficult conference either, but I could see him having a borderline Heisman season. I don't think he's going to win it just because he's from Iowa State. But he's just the kind of guy I can see being the explosive athlete that's worth a late first as a running back.
So I've got Abraham Lucas going here out of Washington State. He's probably a right tackle in the NFL, and he's another one of these COVID guys who I talked about who was a clear first round pick. If he came out last year, then he didn't play this year. It's a really weird, on a lot of these big board websites, he's not even ranked. but I like him in the first round. I would definitely take him here. He's just a fantastic run defender more than anything, and that's the identity that they seem to be going with their offensive line, even though they're pretty loaded on weapons. Like Mekhi Becton, obviously, is just the best run defender I can think of. And I think you pair the two of them together, and all of a sudden your offense becomes a lot more versatile, because it's like, which way is Trey Sermon going? Left or right? I don't know now. Now that they got both sides filled up there. Yeah.
Abraham Lucas, also being from Washington State, he's going to have ran like a million pass sets throughout his college career. So he's going to be experienced in doing a traditional kick set like they would do in the NFL. So they translates very well for them to be at least solid. And then for pick 29, who has this pick? Where is this? Pick 29. Oh, the Ravens have it. So the Baltimore Ravens have picked 29. You had them going Kenyon Green, and I had them going Jordan Davis. So again, kind of on the same wavelength.
Wait, other way around.
Oh wait, did I have?
You had Kenyon Green. Yeah, you took Kenyon Green. I took Jordan Davis.
Oh.
So Kenyon Green, great pick, because I was thinking the same thing and gave them an offensive lineman earlier, and I think you gave them a pass rusher. So it's like we're swapping out the needs there. Yep. So yeah, Jordan Davis probably more of maybe like a 3-tech in their scheme, but they're pretty all over the place. I just first rule of the NFL draft, have a Georgia defensive player in every first round, and I just wanted to get that out of the way here. He's a borderline first round, maybe early second talent, good positional fit for them, good scheme fit, and get a Georgia defender in the first round every time.
Yeah, whoops, I switched those around. I was wondering about that because I thought you'd take it and talked about it, but whatever. So yeah, but Kenyon Green, for the same reasons we talked about earlier, kind of just the Baltimore Ravens fit too. He feels like a Raven, so that's
he really does.
That's kind of where I went with that. And then on to pick 30, the Kansas City Chiefs. You picked a name I'm not going to try to pronounce.
Yeah, dude, I've been watching for a while. Edifon Alufogio. It's clearly like Nigerian, Sudanese maybe, and he's inside linebacker from UW. He's another like Ryan Shazier type, where he's just crazy speed, run defender, edge to edge kind of guy. But he's a good pass defender too, and I've heard a lot of people saying he's just the next Zaven Collins, where he could play anywhere. And in fact, he did. He was a pass rusher. He was like an edge defender his freshman year, and then he moved into inside linebacker. Thus the Zaven Collins comparison, because he just did that in the real NFL. I got a little all over the place there. Anyway, Olufogio, Kansas City. Mark it down.
Great production in 4 games, 47 tackles, a sack, 4 pass protections, and a forced fumble. Like, that's what I had written down for him. It was just like, God,
pretty crazy.
He did it all in 4 games. Yep. So that's exactly why they would take him here. And then I had him just going Winfrey, for what we talked about earlier, kind of the versatility and just – I think we talked about earlier, right? Yeah, there's just so many names. But he was just a name I saw up high a lot too. And I kind of just saw them moving on from Frank Clark at some point. So just seemed like –
I forgot to mention on this next pick for Buffalo about Tyler Linderbaum, who I have going there.
Yep.
He actually moved from defensive tackle to guard. I don't know if you know that. He never actually played DT for them, like in a real snap. Yep. But he came there in spring and was a DT and was recruited at that. And because he was so huge and so short and stubby, and then they were just like, hey, move to guard. And he became one of the best guards in the country.
Yeah, exactly. So he actually, I think, has been playing center for them, if I'm not mistaken. Not sure on that. But I think he's been playing center for them. So
well, either way.
Kind of helps his value a little bit, just because center kind of the captain of that. I think he plays guard at the next level, but still nice that he can play that center for some flexibility there. So you had him going there, and then even though they traded away their first round pick this year for Kareem Hunt, I don't know if they want to pay Kareem Hunt long term. So that's why I didn't like the trade at all. So I have them just moving on between him and Breece Hall. I like Breece Hall a little bit better, but Spiller is just. He needs to be a better receiver for him to take over Breece Hall. But I can see Isaiah Spiller being maybe the better athlete. I don't know. I think Breece Hall's a pretty good athlete. So it's close between the two of them. But yeah, while you're adjusting, we can move on to our last pick. The last pick, you can talk about Isaiah Spiller for a bit because the
Yep.
Pittsburgh Steelers do have.
I just missed whatever you said about him. I'm sure you said good things. How
Yep.
many damn Texas A&M Aggies are we going to have in the first round? This is unprecedented.
They're going to win
But
6
he's my
games this year, and they're going to
clear
have
top
4
running
first-round
back.
picks.
Yeah. I don't really feel that Hall is a top running back contention. I don't really see anyone else in this draft who makes a lot of sense this high. And then at running back, and in our league, getting a really good receiving running back, kind of in the mold of Kareem Hunt, in fact, with this fifth round option or fifth year option that you're getting in the first round in this league, where running backs are more valuable. I was thinking either running back or quarterback for the Bucks here, or no, it's the Steelers. Sorry, but running back or quarterback for like teams drafting in this area because you're trying to steal that extra fifth year option. And I know you hate first round running backs, so you probably wouldn't do this to Pittsburgh, but this is what I would do.
Life, but for this,
yeah.
There is definitely a thought that I will be taking a running back at some point in these because I will need that upside at running back for a Madden league.
Not to mention, like the real life Steelers invested so much in running back.
Yeah.
Like you feel like would eventually do the same thing. It's not like James Conner has any future there, or like Jalen Samuels now.
Yeah.
So
and that's the point. I did get there's at least the outside hope that what's his name? Damn it! Why are names escape? I have too many names in my head right now. From India,
let's see. They've
he tore his Achilles.
Marlon Mack.
Marlon Mack. There's the outside hope that he can put it together, but he's never been a 3-down back. So like
that's you are way outside on that hope. That's
it's not
that's an intentional walk.
It's a minimum contract, so it's not like I'm.
Yeah, you didn't exactly invest, right?
Yeah, so it's not like I'm going crazy. These contracts aren't crazy either. So the running back is definitely on the mind for one of these 2 picks. If Breece Hall is as good as I think he is going to be, there's a decent chance that I'm just taking him at 21 and we'll figure everything else out later. Like, just because I think he's that good and worth the pick. But then, so I went Jordan Battle. I have Jaquiski Tart, who I signed, as, again, kind of just like, a lot of mine are just low-risk dart throws at these positions to see if they work out. He hasn't been healthy. He's on the older side, too. So it's not a development thing. It's he's done it when he's on the field. So can he be on the field? So if he's not, I can move on without killing. I'll keep him on my roster because he's going to be a good special teams guy. But it's just
Battle's great value for you here.
For sure.
You don't get a lot of immediate impact starters, by the end of the first round and the start of the second. And Battle's, I think, as likely as any of these guys to be one of them, just for the same reasons you just said. So that actually wraps up the first round for us.
Yep.
I just wanted to say the best and worst pick I thought you made, as well as Acorn. I thought your best pick for sure was George Pickens out of Georgia. Just somebody I really like and would have taken that early and didn't even have him, so I missed on that one. Worst pick, I like all your picks, but probably Zion Nelson for reasons we already discussed.
Yeah,
Acorn. I thought the worst pick for him was Ritter to the Falcons because I didn't think it really made sense. But I did really like his Kyle Hamilton to the New York Jets pick because it's very informed based on the fact they're trying to trade Marcus May. It just makes sense. Especially because they'd probably trade May in by 2022 at least, you'd think.
Yeah. So then I wasn't prepared for this. This is kind of on the fly.
You don't have to do this.
No, I'll and then so Jalen Weidemer, just because it's early, I don't necessarily hate. Like I said, we talked about it, but if I had to pick one off the top of my head, that's just too early for a tight end. But then on the flip side, Kyle Hamilton, both of our steals of this kind of talking about it's Kyle Hamilton back past 10. So kind of in the same vein. That was just a pretty solid pick for you. I really thought if you were going to go for worst, it'd have been Slovis because that's one that I would pick as I don't know about that, but.
No, I might have said that, but then the more I think about it in the ACFL, that makes sense. I don't like it in the real NFL, but that's not what we're doing here. So,
gotcha. But so that wraps us up for today. Thanks for watching our marathon of a mock draft. But hopefully we got some names out there and kind of names to watch out for in this season because we're going to be wildly wrong on these picks. So that wraps us up. Thanks for watching again.
Jeez, we did go long on this. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, no problem. We'll do it again sometime, I'm sure.
Yep.
All right. Peace out.